What's up? Atlas here, and welcome to a redstoning tutorial. You may be like me. You love redstone. I find it one of the most fascinating things, but you might not know where to start. That's where this comes into play. Before you can get to the big stuff, we gotta start off small. So I'm gonna walk you through everything in this here slab. So you can see you got the redstoning blocks in Java Edition. Not all of this is divided up the same in Bedrock, but we're doing it on Java Edition. So as you can see here, I'm going to work my way through all of these blocks, maybe one, maybe two, maybe three episodes, depending on how long it takes. So let's jump right in, though. Here we go. We start with the most simplest, redstone dust. This just connects things. Think of this as the power line. You can get mods that show you what the power level is. The further you go, the lower the power level gets. So if I keep running out this way, eventually it's going to end. It's going to get like right here. This block is no longer being powered. Power is what activates redstone machines. So if it's powered, it's going to be glowing red down to this faint, and you'll see it's giving off this little redstone particle effect. But if I put this one here, it won't give off any of that redstone particle, and it's dark. So you can see how it looks when I come over here. This all dark. If it looks like that, it's not powered. They can either look like this, connected, like this, which means it's not connected to anything, so it can be connected to any side, or you could have it like this on creative mode when you place it down. Oh, because of that, sorry guys. When you place it down, you can select that and that. So, open or closed, which won't really affect anything except for if you're doing visual looks. So, now we go on to the second one. The redstone block, crafted by 9 redstone in a crafting table. Here's the crazy thing. Redstone has no power, but when you put them together, 9 in a crafting table, you get a block. This block generates equivalent to the strongest power source created, which can go pretty far, as you can see. Like, if I could just stretch this way, it's going to end here. Same place the other one ended. So, most things that are generating a power will generate it at the same strength until you get into the way more technical side of stuff. But basically, if I have a redstone thing that turns it on with a button, it's going to generate at the same strength. This is a block, it just powers it, and it can get into a little quasi-connectivity where if I even have this unplugged, like see it's not connected, but now it is, and you're like, well, it's going through there. Nope, still connected, even though it's not touching, and it can get really weird. Now let's move on to the next one. So that was the redstone block. That was just redstone dust. Now we move on to one of the most fun, and that is the redstone torch. What does the redstone torch do? Well, it's crafted with 1 stick and 1 redstone dust. What you're going to do now is you can place it down, and it provides redstone, the same as these two. But you can see it can also be here, also providing redstone. The coolest part is, let's say you want to toggle it off, which turn it off basically. And then I'm going to place this here. Well, now it's turned off. Flip this again. It's turned back on. What uses does this have? Well, if you're making a piston door, you can toggle it on and off like this. So you want it to stay open most of the time, okay? And now I want it to open for me. The pistons retract. There's one other mechanic they can do, as you can see here. If you have a redstone torch, block, another redstone torch, this one is off. And it can keep going like that all the way up. And you can see we have these lights here to show that they're on. Now you can use the other mechanic that we saw earlier with it being diagonal and turn it off to send a signal vertical. Now this right here, you can see, well, let me get up here, is what's keeping it on because signals through blocks can be transferred. So most blocks will transfer the power. So if I have a block here, power gets transferred. If I don't, power doesn't. So if you have a setup diagonal and then every other with redstone torches, I can send a signal hypothetically all the way up to the world height limit. So that was the redstone torch. So we've done redstone torch, lever, and block. Now we move onto the target block. Now I'm going to need to grab something out of here. Let's just go egg real quick. So we just take one of these eggs, and you can see we have this set up to some redstone. If I throw an egg at it, see the redstone turns on. the closer I get to the bullseye, so if I line this right up here at the bullseye, it's going to have a stronger thing. The further away, the weaker. So that can come into skill. Oh, look at baby chicken. So if I'm like doing a mini game and I'm shooting from way over here, you're like, oh, I'm hitting this, but you have to hit the exact bullseye to turn on the light, or it turns on lights based on where you hit it, or it drops you prizes. That's what the target block can do. It can also be used in other redstoning things. This one is crafted with 8 hay bales and a piece of redstone in the middle. So that's the target block. Let's move on to the next one. Redstone repeater. These basically will help you send a signal over longer distances. So let's say we have one of these here, okay? And I got this, but I need it to get way over. Let's just send this for a while. Way over here, okay? Well, this signal isn't going to last that long, okay? This basically re-energizes it. So let's just give myself another one of these real quick. If we walk down here and we see, well, right here, boom. Now we can go for another reset of blocks. So I can do that to make it go further. And you can keep placing those to make them go longer. Another thing they can do, if I come over here and turn it off, is I can adjust the time. So 0 ticks, 1, 2, 3 ticks. Those are all and that just adds a delay to it. So you can see, look, ready? We stop here. We're going to zoom out a little bit so you can see. The redstone hits it, and then it takes a second, and then it turns on. So if you're trying to make a timer system, you can have this redstone, like, bypass around here, have one of these right here to set to max ticks. Let me just, ba ba ba, ba ba ba, ba ba ba, and then bypass it a little so you can get a jump and then get a reboost, so you can have something right here get turned on before that one. Now these are just some fun ways to do it. There are simpler ways, but like you can see, it goes down and it really does slow it down. And then if I turn it off, it's going to take the same amount of time to turn off. But you might notice, why isn't it turning off even though the lever is off? You can get it into a time loop. So basically, this one's powering this one, which is powering this one, which is powering this one. This, which is powering this, which comes all the way back around to power this one. So you get it in this here. So now I could get rid of this lever, and now you got a power source. If I break this, it turns off. But you can get it just set up right at the perfect time to be passing the symbol down this line all the way, so you can see it's in a constant rotation state. So if I had a light here, here, and here, I could be like turning on the lights in that order. And that's basically how most of this redstoning works, and that's how you can get these complicated redstone inventions using a lot of different ticks. And so I can mess it up. So if I want that one to be shorter, these two to be shorter, so it's going to be long, short, 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 long, short, short, long. So now we have da 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 da. And now you get it stuck where it's on, so you have to kind of re-mess with it. And that's where a lot of redstone comes to. It's kind of like computer programming. You're going to have to mess with it a little bit to find out what's right. So I'm going to turn that off, and then I turn it back on. And now I have 2 signals going. And so if I don't want that, I just stop it for a little second, and then I send it again. And you can have it with that. The other thing about these is, if I have a lever here, and I go to turn it on, see, this one works just fine. Let's turn it off, and I turn on this one. You can see this little bedrock lever has come out. What that means is, while this one normally, when I flick this lever on, powers this redstone, okay? If I turn this lever off and then power this one, and then I turn this one on, it can't get through. This one locks it, which can help if you're making more complicated things, like just assume these are levers, and they're coming from a big redstone computer machine you have over here, which you have this button being pressed and you need a signal to be sent this way, or stop a signal from going that way. That's when the blocking mechanism, or bedrocking, comes into play. It's very, very useful. So now let's move on to the next one. This right here is a repeater. Correction, it's not a repeater. It is a comparator. Sorry, y'all. So this has a couple things. So we're going to start over here. Most people use it for this right here. It's a basic use of it. If I put a lever here and I turn it on, you see it's going to blink really fast. So if I wanted to send a really, really fast redstone signal down the line where I wanted these lights to blink on and off, you can do it right there. And then you can use these. So like if I do that, and then I do that, and then I go right here, and I set this one to 3 ticks, you can make a system that's going to turn it off and on at a slower rate. And if I bring this down to 2 ticks, it's going to go faster, down to 1 tick where it's basically the same speed. And so you can tweak with it till you get the exact speed that you want. And you can use this to make a complicated timer that, I don't know, let's just say waves a flag or something like that. Another thing that comparators are good at is holding a redstone signal. So if I turn this on, it's going to go down this long line and then come over here. And it's going to stay powered. Okay? And let's say I turn it off. Well, nothing happens, so that's because we have a weird setup. But let's break it. It's going to take longer for it to get through. So if we do something more like that, well, not that, that's wrong. Sorry. If I place this block, if we do something more like, where's that block again? Okay. This. You take this, you break this, you go here. You turn it on. I don't want this one. And then see, it keeps going really, really fast. But you would mix in some repeaters. So this will slow down the pulse. And these here will help it last longer. These are called pulse extenders, and you need those to just basically do what you do in Minecraft. So I turn it on, it gets over here, I turn it off, and it comes back through. And you can differentiate these by ticking these to different points. But remember, the longer you have these set, the longer it's going to take to turn on. So we have all these to max, and I come over here. So it's going to take longer for the signal to get all the way over there and all the way back. But then, when I turn it off, it's going to take time. Still not too much time. But you can change the way the pulse extenders are. Now, don't do this, guys. What's going to happen? It's going to get stuck. Or this. I mean, it's not really going to do anything, so you can turn on these lights. It just doesn't do anything. But we're going to move to basically the most powerful version of this. So you can wait for these to turn off, you see. This is the best thing that the comparator does. It reads information. So if I put a spruce stair in here, you can see it's now turned on. It's got the weakest signal strength. That's not going to make it to a second block, as you can see. But let's say we put a redstone dust, all of this junk in here, okay? Like that. It's going to not move further. But this is what you use a system for. If you have a stack in here, it's going to move further. If you have 2 stacks, it's going to go further. The more you have in this chest, the further it goes. So if I just go right here and I'm just like, okay, I want a stack of oak logs, do another one. Okay, so I'm going to wait for those to come into my inventory. I put them both in here. You can see it's gone a little bit further. The more area it has in here, the more. So if you had a hopper, it takes less to move it further. So you still need a lot, but it takes less. And let's say something like ender pearl. So you could find an ender pearl in here, and I drop a couple of these. Now, there's less of them, so you might be like, well, it's not going to move it as far. But it counts it as slots. So those right there are 3 slots. Think of things as slot, and only a slot is filled if it's a stack. So if this is a stack, it counts as a slot. That's why most of this isn't doing anything. Now you can take things like a sword over here, and you just drop one of these over. And then I pick these up, okay? So let's drop them over the edge. Pick them up. These also count as slots. And so it's going to keep moving it further and further and further as it goes. So you can have this using a hopper to make an item sorter, and that keeps it from just draining all of the items really, really quickly. So that was the comparator. Let's move on to the copper bulb. What does the copper bulb do? Well, the copper bulb does this. Well, it turns on. Okay. I broke the redstone signal. Well, there's no more. Why is it still staying on? That's what differentiates the copper bulb from the lamp. It stays on as long as it's received the redstone signal. Now, if I turn it off, it will stay off. You can see, if I turn it back on, this little redstone right here. That means it's receiving a redstone signal. Now I turn it off. You can see it's no longer receiving it, but it's on until I turn it off. And then that takes it away, and you can keep clicking it back and forth, basically to turn it off and on. So if it gets powered once, until it gets powered again, it stays on, which can be used for different designs and observers and things like that. Now let's come over here to the buttons. You can see the buttons basically do the same thing. One is just a stone button. And as you can see, we're doing the lamps, so they're staying on. And then if we press the buttons again, like this, they're going to turn off. So, that's basically what the buttons do. They just transfer a signal, but it's momentary. So, if you want it to be a shorter signal, you use these buttons. You can see, like, do this. They're about the same amount of time, totally. So you can either use a stone or an oak. Now, this is compatible to all of them, which is just what you do. It comes down to what you want for design. They don't really change that much between them. And you don't have to use light sources. You could have them using dispensers and different things like that. Now we move on to the pressure plate. Now there's 4 types of pressure plates set up here. We have the first, which is an oak pressure plate, which can be signaled by anything on it. It travels the furthest, okay? So if I stand on it, or if an object is on it, it goes the same distance. A stone pressure plate doesn't go if I have it on it, but does go if I'm on it, okay? You see? Over there, it's still on. It's not quite as far, but only 1 block short. Not bad. And then you come over here to the light-weighted one. It has, by far, the lowest signal strength. Now, this can be triggered by anything, but it just doesn't go that far. So this is for closer traps or design. A lot of pressure plates are for design. And then the iron one. It has equivalent to a much, much shorter range, like that one, but also activates other ways. So, you know, if I put that on there, it stays on there and it stays down. And throw it on there, it stays down. Very much to the gold one. The main difference between these is the look and can have different redstone functionalities. So this one over here, only activated by people. This one is the furthest, this one is the shortest, and this one goes the second shortest. Both basically do the same thing, so if you're looking for one of them and this fits your color scheme better, use this, don't use that. Or either way, it doesn't matter, these are basically the same pressure plate. Now let's move over to one of the most fun mechanics, Sculk sensors. So over here you can see this. It hears me, it turns on the light. Now if we come over here and we go wool, oh, I can't spell, wool, and we take brown wool, okay? Doesn't matter what color, and I place it here, okay? I jump on this side of it, it can't hear me, okay? I break the wool, now it can. So if I do the wool here and here, looky there, okay? As long as the wool now protects my sound waves, it won't hear me. So, if you're in a deep dark, you can cover said thing in wool, and I can just jump around happily the rest of my life. So, we can break this wool, and you can see now it's reacting. So, as long as the wool is in front of the sound that you're making, you'll be fine. You can see, if not, the Sculk sensor can hear me like this, and it sends a signal to here. It comes out with the same signal strength of a button, or a lever, or an oak, or any wood pressure plate, as you can see here. Next one, this right here is a calibrated Sculk sensor, crafted with a Sculk sensor in 3 amethyst shards. This right here is a book, and it's on page 8 of 18. Then you put it on a lectern and put a comparator here pointed into the crystalled side of the Sculk sensor. And that's all you really need. And then you look up something, I might put it in the description, but it's very complicated where it comes to each of these pages does a different thing. So if it's on page 1, it detects certain sounds. But for our demonstration, we are going to do this. It's on page 8. What I do is I open this chest. It's not detecting the sound. Let's see. I can jump around in front of this, and it does not matter. And then I eat my apple, and it picked it up. So if you're making a mini game and you don't want people to be able to eat, you put these all over the place, and if you want it to be set to something different, you could have it set to page 11, and that might be breaking blocks, or jumping, or drinking potions. So you have it set to all sorts of things. And this is how you can get some crazy cool, like, prisons, because you can have these set to different things as you want them to be able to do it. So if I want them to be able to do this, then I let them have only that type of Sculk sensor deactivated. And you can deactivate it at any time by just breaking this, or coming over here and taking the book. Now it just acts like a normal Sculk sensor. The only difference it's got a further range. Where the other one, right now, you see, it's not picking me up, but this one is. And you can do some crazy things with amethyst blocks to get it to send them all the way around in like an endless circle. So if I put the book back now, we see we put him back, okay? And now I jump. That one detects movement, but not jumping. So then you just mess with the pages and you can learn what they do or look up a wiki about them to find it. So let's move on to the next one, the tripwire hook. This is going to use the lamp and a bell, which is technically also part of it. The bell just makes sound, and that just makes light. So if I'm walking through here, I have a tripwire hook over here and a tripwire hook over here. They have to be on the side of a block, and then you connect them with this string. Hopefully they don't have their cursor hit the string, but you can be walking and you're just like, oh, I fell into a trap, or alarm has sounded, or the light turned on. So you can do a lot with this just by walking through and walking back. And now let's move to the last thing of our video, the daylight sensor. The daylight sensor, also the night sensor, basically senses daylight. Well, obviously. So let's say, right now, it's day, okay? If I set it to night now, that means it will sense when the moon is out, not the sun. That's kind of what it makes sense to do. But also, right now, it's detecting it. But if I do this, it's still detecting it, because light from the sun is still getting in there. If I block it up like that, light turns off. It is no longer detecting it. But you might be like, what about this? Now it detects it because it's dark. It's more of a light sensor than a daylight sensor, or a dark sensor more than a night sensor. That's how I like to think of it. So this video is already getting really long, so we'll come back through and do the next set of things next week. So Atlas out.